Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name's Munira Madison. Welcome to our Mass Youth National Podcast, where we're covering relationships and we're starting with our connection with Allah. Today, I'm honored to have with me Muhammad Oda, who's the director of the youth department at Dar al-Hijra.
Assalamu alaikum. How's everybody feeling?
And Muhammad Kabriya, who's our Mass National Youth Director.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Okay, so last podcast we talked about connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Today we're going to talk about love. So I know the February 14th is not here yet, right? But we're going to discuss love. So my question to both of you, starting with Munira, have you ever fallen in love?
Starting with me? Yes.
And think about it when you're answering this question, like when we in society, when we're talking about the love, or again, like I mentioned, like February 14th is around the corner, we all know what's going on that day, right? Think about in a deeper sense, like when you fell in love, or what does that mean to you, or what is love to you? I think that's the question we should really discuss. Like, what is love to you?
Exactly. In my human relationships, I've always said that love is a lack of judgment or the absence of judgment.
Ooh, okay.
MashaAllah. Okay.
Because haven't you ever wondered why you love certain people, why you have a connection with certain people, whether it's platonic or romantic or familial?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that lack of judgment. And you were telling me earlier something about security.
Yeah, and I'll get deep into it because I think the word even hub, right? The Arabic word hubbullah, right? And when we talk about loving Allah or loving someone, or even the love relationship you have towards your spouse, towards your family member, there's a different there's different ways of looking at love, right?
True.
So what about you, Muhammad? What's your take on it? When you think about love, or if you ever found love, what was that like, bro?
Falling in love?
Did you DM her first, or she DM'd? No, I'm kidding.
I actually DM'd her first.
Okay.
We met on a dating website called Facebook.
Facebook, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Before they came out with their dating app.
Before Muz match, right?
Before Minder.
Or Minder, okay. All right.
Or Muzz, where you call it, man, all that.
Okay.
I would say my earliest relationship with love that I can think of was one with, I would say, my mother, if you will. Yeah.
Okay.
And one early moment I remember is it's a combination of Allah and my mother, because I remember I used to ask Allah for things and Allah would give me those things. And so it was during Ramadan, and I remember my mother didn't come home.
Yeah.
It was late. Yeah. And it was this is the first time she didn't come home. It was 8:00 and she was home. I was like, where's my dinner? But seriously, I was like, where's my mother at?
Yeah.
And so I remember at that time I wanted to get a Nintendo 64. That was the game console that everybody was, playing with.
Yeah.
So I was like, Ya Allah, look, I know you're gonna give me this Nintendo 64, but just bring my mother back and you can keep the Nintendo 64. No, wallahi.
Making these deals, yeah.
No, wallahi, that's what I remember saying that. And then wallahi, my mother came back. So I was like, Ya Allah, thank you. And I ended up getting the Nintendo 64 also.
Oh, mashallah, you got 2 in 1.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I feel like that. I conflate love with trust also, and something that you can depend on.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I always felt like I always could depend on Allah.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
And for me, when I was evaluating human relationships and the absence of judgment being love, when we think about Allah, we know that there is judgment there, but we know that it's shrouded in mercy. He's giving us mercy.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Before anything. So we trust in his judgment.
Truth.
So I think that's how it all feeds into each other.
And I think that going back to when we were discussing, for example, in our previous podcast, we talked about different ways of connecting with Allah. We talked about connecting through nature, right? Pondering, making dhikr. And we have to step back and say, okay, anytime you're connecting with somebody, right, you're trying to build relationships. Because relationship requires work.
Right.
I think that's something that... And if I ask everybody, do you love Allah, right? Nobody will deny that. Somebody, it could be a lip service at that moment, but there's this love exists within us, right? Because even when the ruh, the soul, when it was blown into us, there's almost a sense of we belong somewhere else. So when we're talking about this sense of love, I mean, we experience it a different way. So, I remember, my high school days, right? When we talk about love, it's just we always think about the opposite gender, or, that love. Or, there's different forms to it.
Exactly.
And I really want people to understand that when you really have to ask yourself these questions every day. Do I love Allah? Do you love Allah? And what does that mean? Like, what is that like? And if you ask me, I consider myself, and I was telling Munir earlier, I consider myself almost as a convert, even though I was born Muslim. Why? Because when I truly understand the true love of Allah, I was satisfied.
Right.
Like I didn't need anything else. Like that was it. That was like my point of reconnecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once I understood the love that Allah has for me, and I had to start working on relationship with my Allah through that love, right?
Right.
So I think that was the most powerful thing to me.
And I think that comes through understanding, like what you were just talking about. And so when reflecting upon different ways I connect with Allah, I came to conclude that like I take an Arabic class every Tuesday evening, and after that I feel, or during it, I feel connection. So seeking knowledge or continuing your search to be able to understand, because like our goal as believers is to have every single moment in our life be worship, right? True. And it already is. But how can we feel that, and how can we feel that connection unless we understand the meanings behind things? And so being able to understand what I'm saying in prayer, or being able to like even open my Instagram and be very conscious of following different pages with hadiths or with Quran sayings where I'm learning even from that form of consumption. So it can be like books, lectures, classes, like anything, but seeking understanding through gaining knowledge.
Yeah. So go ahead.
This reminds me, because when you talk about like personal relationships, it kind of reminds me my relationship with Allah, and maybe it might resonate with you also. It's the idea that, you know, like you can abuse the person that you love,
right?
Not necessarily physically,
but
granted. Like yes. So like, for example, what's the saying where it goes, the idea of like we don't fall into a state of despair by focusing on the punishment, and we also want to be hopeful of Allah's mercy at the same time.
Exactly.
But like the balance. But if you are unbalanced, and I have been, and oftentimes I am unbalanced in focusing on the mercy of Allah, and to some extent it almost makes me feel as if I'm like, it's like being in a relationship with someone who constantly forgives you and constantly forgives you, and you don't change, and you continue to make those same mistakes type thing, you know. And that's something I think about too, as far as like that part where I feel like, dang, like, and that also has affect my ability sometimes to come to Allah sometimes, where it's like, man, like Allah been forgiving me, and I keep doing the same stupid stuff, and I'm thinking like you know, maybe I'm taking advantage of Allah, you know what I'm saying? Like that can maybe see what your thoughts are about that.
So it's interesting, because going back to what you said, Munira, is like understanding what you are saying in your prayer. Like I, you know, even though I was born Muslim, like being a Desi, the toughest thing for me was to really understand Arabic. Right. Like when I first read the English Quran, I was like, whoa, what am I saying in here, right? I was like taken back by it, right? So, and if you really look at like this last, in my last Usra, we were talking about the word hub, like, and Brother Samir broke it down, right? And he was talking about like, if you really look at the word, and you have to look at the roots of things, right? And it's mesmerizing when like the certain speaker are able to take the root word and really explain to you, and it's like, whoa, I never thought about it that way, right? And it's amazing. So like he explained the word like hub, right? And he talked about haba, right? Haba, and the word haba explains almost like crawling. So you crawl to something. For example, the example he gave was a baby. So I want you guys to think about when baby crawls to its mother. So why is it's crawling to its mother? Because he feels safety, he feels secure, right? He's feeling comfort. There's so much to it. So when you love Allah, like and again, to viewers, I want you guys to think about it. When you say you love Allah, right? Do you feel secure by like going to Him, either like coming closer to Him? Do you feel connected? Do you feel loved? Really ask yourself about these questions, because that's where your true testification of love is being connected, right? And there's a hadith where like when you love Allah, when you say, okay, I love Allah. When you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, there are like Allah will tell the angels like, love so and so, and then that love spreads across. It's just amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah, just last night in our chit chai session, we were talking about, in order to, like, sometimes we, like you were also saying, like sometimes we feel like we've been so ungrateful, or we're so we're such sinners that we feel inhibited to come forward and even pray because we're before Allah. And so I think that also goes back to like you said, like having that dose, like the bird of Iman has one wing of mercy and hope, and one wing of of justice and fear. But the head of that bird is love.
Subhanallah.
And so that is just
the
so.
that we could drop right now.
Let's say thank you to Al-Ghazali for that. Because. Like you said, when you have too much of one dose of like hope, you need and mercy, you need that dose of fear. And when you have too much of that fear and guilt, you need that dose of love and mercy to be balanced.
Yeah.
And to not take for granted that relationship we have with him.
Without a doubt.
But also we need to practice forms of self-love to be comfortable going before Allah. And like submitting ourselves to them, because I think sometimes we can feel so guilty that we keep using our friend, right? We feel like we're using our friend, using our friend. So then we start
rides, for food.
Exactly. So then we start ghosting them because we just so we don't want to ghost Allah.
True.
Like we want to show up.
Definitely true.
We want to show up and be there and show our love for him by also working on our love for ourselves and self-awareness and growth and stuff like that. So that was something I wrote down, is like self-care. You don't think about self-care as being a form of love and connection to Allah. But it is, because by honoring ourselves, we're honoring him. So, like, what do you think about that?
I like that. Also, self-care, it's like a lot of times people think that in order to be productive, they have to constantly busy themselves with activity. But self-care actually increases your capacity.
Right.
So it also, it gives you it makes it easier for you to do what you need to do.
Right.
And it expands your capacity to do good. So, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's something that I feel like sometimes, especially like if you're working in the community, you might feel like you're not supposed to have time for yourself.
Right.
I gotta keep being selfless.
I mean, look at the Prophet. Like he stood in the middle of the night. Like they said, each hour you get back in the community, you should be like same hours you should be spending in the night along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And okay, look, we're talking about love, right?
Right.
Relationships with Allah or relationship with anyone requires work. So okay, here's the thing. Like, so me and my wife, right? Like we were looking back at our like recordings or our pictures, and there was one moment she sent me a screenshot. Like me and her, we were talking to each other for like almost all night at one time. We just can't go back in the days, right? There's no FaceTime.
Nice.
And you realize, like, when you're in love with somebody or when you're in love with something, could be your, it could be your sports or hobby. You invest time.
Right.
You put efforts. Right? You really go above and beyond and spend and invest. And then once you fully invested in that relationship, right? You can take, for example, a lot of us, like, we realize that the practicing people or the people who are practicing, like sometimes you take things for granted and that you go through the spiritual crisis, right?
Yeah.
So going back, I want to go back and put emphasis. If you feel like every love requires investment.
Right.
So that one person you love and care about, you're going to go out of your comfort zone to please them because you love them. So, and I think I struggle with that. When we say we love Allah, the reality is, you and I, we know we struggle to really fulfill His obligations or something. Right? So, like, when you say if I ask people, so do you love Allah? Like, yeah, I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, so you do anything for Allah? Like, and then you look back at like, I'm not even showing up on time. I'm not even keeping my promises.
Right.
I'm not even like doing the basic, like, essential, the principles, right? Yeah. I'm not smiling. I'm not being genuine. Like, well, let's think about your love a little bit.
Yeah.
True.
Right?
Not being on time. I noticed you looked at me when you said that. I don't appreciate that.
So Muhammad didn't expect this recording was going to take place in the video, but so I cut him off guard. So Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
But again, the investment and the time we have to put into relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is important. And I think, like, sometimes you're going to do things that you may not like. Right. Just like when we love someone and when we love something, we do things that even displeasing to us, but we do it because we love that person or we love that thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Even the other day, I saw a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time. Like, literally, we were just passing cars.
Yeah.
And I stopped in the middle of the road without even thinking if there was anyone behind me. Alhamdulillah, I didn't get rear-ended.
All right, good.
But what I took away from this is I was like, listen, you can really tell that you love someone. Like, you really love someone for the sake of Allah.
Yeah.
When, like, the whole world just stops. And you need to make sure that they're okay. Like, you're not thinking about any of this dunya stuff. You're not thinking, all of that just dissipates. And so if you can think of, like, one person in your life, like, you would just stop in the middle of the road for, or, like, you don't care about your other obligations, that, to me, was a lesson in how I should love Allah.
Ooh. Okay, so the question is,
that's powerful.
Do you guys ever tell Allah, I love you? Like think about it for a second. Like, do you guys, throughout your day, do you say, well, Allah, I love you?
To me,
because like expressing because like if I don't say I love you to my wife, I'm in trouble, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So if we're able to express that love, like, and there's different ways of expressing. There's a lip service to express, right? I love Allah, versus there's a way actually living through that love of Allah, right? So you actually going to do things that Allah loves. Right? So question to you guys is, and to the viewers, do you guys ever stop and say like, hey, I love you, Allah? And like, I don't know if I'm in the weird one. Like sometimes I just randomly talk to him. I was like, wow, you know,
right.
I have this relationship with Allah, and I say this, look, guys. At the end of the day, in your entire life, right? All the love that you and I experience, loving Allah should exceed that. And I never understood that till I really started investing time, and I was like, you know what? Nothing satisfied me in my life. Like me being 36, through all the journey that I went through, nothing satisfied me until I learned to love Allah, and that's when I was freed. And I tell people, I was like, man, your wife, your children, you're gonna have some sort of component of love, but those things are those people will, and those things that you're
on camera. Be careful.
She knows. She, like, we have an authentic relationship. Like nothing will satisfy you until you learn to truly love Allah, and when you feel the love from Allah, and you'll feel like you'll see the barakah. Like when you start loving Allah, man, He opens up doors for you in so many ways. So like, I'm sure you guys have experienced something like that.
Yeah. So normally
I'm not trying to drop like oh my God moments here, right?
So it's interesting. Like when I'm asking Allah for something, like. And that's why I'm trying to like get like a little bit more like the idea of like asking like thanking Allah like as opposed to like just constantly Ya Allah, you know, if I'm sincere, Ya Allah, you mean like I remember when I was younger I used to say specifically when there was a question that someone would present to me and it was something that was bothering me. It could be like you name it. It could be like you know, how old was Aisha? I know when she got married to the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, and I'm studying, I'm doing research, and it's just not setting right in my head. And I'll be like, Ya Allah,
like top 10 things we
talk about. I love you. You know that I'm sincere. Ease my mind. Give me understanding. And that's how I would ask Allah. Like, and I'd be like you know it. Like if I'm here at 12 a.m. like reading, studying, crying, and asking you, you know I'm sincere. So. Yeah. Give me insight. And wallahi, alhamdulillah, Allah has always eased my mind. Yeah. You know? So that's something that I feel like, so I do tell Allah that, you know, I love you and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. But usually it's in the context of me asking for something. So I gotta get it. So
and nothing wrong with it, right? So like Munira, you had few moments when we discussed this, like just a few minutes ago, you're like, oh man, like when we talked about this
actually whole love. There's this beautiful, so you know, I was raised United Methodist. My mother's a director of music in a church, so one way in which I really connect with Allah is like through poetry or through those hymns. So like in the church there's hymns that you sing, but it's really like poetry
kind of like nasheeds.
It's like nasheeds, and it really teaches you a lot about Allah. One of my favorite hymns and like just the lyrics, it's the lyrics, is called The Gift of Love. And I'm trying to remember the lyrics right now because it literally talks about this. That like, though I may speak with bravest fire and have the power to all inspire, if have I not love, then like my words are in vain, like sounding brass and hopeless gain. But the ending verse, I can't remember it. It's all about how our souls are yearning to be made whole. And only through that love and like being a manifestation of that love as well, do we worship and are freed. And so when you said something about being free, it just like clicked and I remembered those words. And so I think there's a lot of like beautiful poetry and art forms that can help us really feel that connection and be like inspired to stay up until like 1 a.m. crying and seeking knowledge and stuff like that. So that's why I had that moment, because I was thinking about that.
And I think we really have to think about it. For example, like, you know, nothing will satisfy our hunger and our needs towards this form of love that we're talking about, right? So like a lot of people think like, oh, when I get married, I'll really be able to understand what love is. When I have children, you might get a taste of that love that Allah has blessed us with. But true satisfaction and contempt that you're gonna really get is understanding the love of Allah, and you'll see it like once you're able to accept, like, this is the true love that I'm truly seeking, because we invest so much time, like this is the reality, okay, like I'm Daisy, we watch so much Bollywood films, okay, Shah Rukh Khan has, like, we grew up watching like I'm sure many people will agree here, you guys will have your Bollywood nights,
Disney.
right, all of a sudden raining and then tree behind the all that style, right? The point is
The 3-hour movie.
the 3 hours movie is like 2.5-hour songs. The point is, like, when you look at all those things, it's like, man, that's love. Like, I'm like sitting there like, no, that's not love, right? It's but once I like, when you really taste the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I swear it's a different satisfaction, subhanAllah. Like, it's amazing.
Last night, we were talking about the hadith, and please forgive me if I misquote or anything. I'm not going to quote the hadith, but it's about how, like, in Jannah, when all the believers who are meant to be in Jannah are in Jannah, that Allah will basically tell us that I have reserved, like, will call upon us and say, I am giving you better than the best, and that in itself is, and we're saying, like, how can you give us anything better? And He lifts the veil between Him and us. And then they talked about it. Brother Naeem was leading the halaqah and was talking about how, why is that better than the best for us? And why do we want to be in such proximity to Allah? And why is that, like, so fulfilling? And how are we actually showing that that's what we want? Like, when we hear that, we're like, oh, we want to be there. But how are we showing that we want to be there in our lives, in our daily lives? And so, like, everything that we're doing should be a reflection of that love and, like, yearning to be in His presence. So that, like, just hit me.
That reminded me, there's, that's really beautiful. There's a book by Houston Smith, which is titled The World Religions. Yeah. And in it, there's a section where he's tying it to Hinduism, but he says that when it comes to human beings trying to acquire, material things, that eventually we reach a point where we realize that we can never get enough of what we really don't want. Right. And and so what I'm thinking about when you're saying, Allah lifts the veil and we can see Allah, and that being like the epitome, tying it in this world, like, when you have Allah, you can be content with having no material. Exactly. Yeah. But when you don't have Allah, nothing's enough. Right. Yeah. Nothing else can fill that void. Right. You can have one car, you're going to want another car. Right. And the list can go, I'll say other things, but we'll leave it at that. And that's facts, so Allah, that's beautiful.
But going back, like, it all ties back to, like, we think that the next step in our life is going to complete us. The next step in our life is going to complete us. Yes, without a doubt. Again, without really understanding that love that we should have for Him and He has for us already. Yeah. And nothing, we're incomplete.
This journey, like, it's a journey towards connecting with Allah. Understand that, but there will be a moment in your life where you might question things. You might have like just like every relationship, right? Yes. You have ups and downs. So you might have that ups and downs even with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're going through that phase, it's okay. Like, seek a way, because every relationship requires work. Right. And I think we need to really think about consciously that I'd rather be in this journey with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than with anything else. Right. I'd rather be constantly reconnect, and you need to work, right? You need to put efforts into your relationship. So that nightly prayer, that dhikr, that service work, that conscious of decision, right? Everything ties back. Like, if you're not doing, like, I always joke about, like, the Trinity concept, right? Like, everything ties to connecting with Allah. Right. Like, if you're not getting married for the sake of Allah, then think about it twice. If you're not having kids for the sake of Allah, then think about it twice. Like, everything is connected. Ultimately, He is the source of your entire path of whatever the road you take.
And I think it's important that, like, a lot of society expectation, a lot of cultural expectation says that it's in the name of Allah. But we need to really make sure that we're internalizing that before we take those steps, like marriage, like having children, all of that. So, like, until it clicks inside, it's really not for the sake of Allah.
Absolutely. You're right. And I think that's something we have to really, again, going back to self-care, right? Right. If you have not made that connection internally, it doesn't matter how much, traditions or the other, the physical aspects of the prayer, the psalm comes in, it's not going to make sense. And that's what I grew up with, like, just do it because you're supposed to do it. Yeah. Until you internalize, until you connect,
And the thing that strikes me when you were talking about, like, every relationship requires work, and there's all these ebbs and flows, but Allah is the one partner who will never stop putting in the effort.
Wow, that's deep. It's
Right?
true. It's
That's
true.
true.
Like, we don't have to be afraid that He's going to abandon us.
Yeah, true. That trust.
So you and I might just like give up and here and there, right?
Yeah.
Not
Maybe-
pray or not paying, like, you know.
Exactly.
But He never. That's true. And
He never gives up on us.
And subhanAllah, one thing to understand, you know, you and I, we are never alone. That's that's crazy part. Like, you hear things, scholars like, oh, you know, imagine you have a camera on, somebody's watching all the time. I was like, that's kind of creepy. But then when you talk about relationship with Allah, you're never alone.
The original Big Brother.
Exactly.
SubhanAllah. So like, this is great. Again, like, you know, going back, discussing, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love is so vital in here. And many, like, when one of my mentor, he asked, like, you know, in our discussion, our Muzaffar, he said, what's the first thing that comes in your mind when you think about Allah? Like, what's the first thing that comes in your mind? What do you got? What comes in your mind when you're?
I mean, right now I want to say love, because that's what
we're talking
about.
Majority people, the introduction to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or God has been really like coming from a culture or scary, the Punisher, right? It has been, and it's almost like you got to reconstruct your thought process. Allah. If you think Allah is that's the first thing comes in your mind is the punishment and all accountability, then you have not understood. I don't think you have a healthy relationship with Him yet.
It's like keeping the tallies, and like when I first learned, okay, if you say this 100 times, then this happens. If you do this, and it was like, wait a minute. It's a brownie system, like a brownie point system.
Right.
And if you just think of it in those very like what word am I trying to say?
Like, how to quantify it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you lose that like sense of meaning and purpose and why you're doing it. And so like it's important, like you said, like I do think we see it a lot in all faith communities that the like fear of Allah is what's going to make you a good person. But it has to be a balance. And and one more thing I want to mention to the viewers, like the reality is when you have this issue with Allah, it never ends. Even if you end it, He doesn't end it with you, because you know, because mercy is there. Everything He's given you, eyes, sight, and everything, all the blessings. But it's also important to recognize that if you're struggling, like I struggled, like even though me being involved in my community, there are moments where I did not have, I wasn't submitting. When I say I wasn't submitting, that means I wasn't praying on time. I even like did not feel anything. I was going through a crisis, and a lot of people are going through these things. Yes.
But one thing I always know that, like, meet Allah where you at, and He'll meet you. Like, one thing is that people think I have to be this perfect Muslim to go and become all righteous. No, meet Allah. He'll meet with you where you at. Actually, he's gonna take one step. He'll take 10 steps towards closer to you, right? Yeah, and I always tell people, look, no matter what happens, even if you have done the major sin, like all the sins you can think of in the book, put your head down, say, "Oh Allah, forgive me." Even if it doesn't come from your heart, just the fact that you put your head down and you made that effort. That means you have so don't ever lose this connection, despite the level of your love is there or not. Point is to hold on. Like, it's like holding on to the rope of Allah, right? There's a verse that mentions,
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Anything else, guys? So have you fallen in love, Muhammad?
What's that?
Have you ever fallen in love?
Have I fell in love? I've fell in love several times in my life. Okay. You know, it seems like a dangerous thing. You know, going back to that trust thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, falling in love or being in love with Allah is one thing.
Right.
You know, being in love with creation.
Exactly.
You know, there's different things you have to. You know, and then falling is like you're out of control.
Right.
Like you're, you know, so maybe climb into love or something like that, or you know. Might be, you know, so you can still have a little.
This is getting awkward right now.
Yeah, it's getting awkward. You're about to get some water coming up from my eyes.
Water coming from your eyes.
You're triggering me right now, brother.
So may Allah accept from you guys. I think this is a great discussion. We definitely want to continue it, right?
I think there's just so many, like, the ways to connect with Allah and to feel that love is just endless. Yeah. And so, like, we could continue this for
may Allah, like, subhanahu wa ta'ala, fulfill love in our hearts.
Amen.
And we're able to love Him the way He loves us, and continue this process of, you know, this relationship with Him. And like I always say this, like, I hope He never stops loving me, because I know He does. Like, you know, like, I know Allah loves me. I mean, if you wake up in the morning, Allah loves you. Like you have another day, another chance, another opportunity. So like, you know, invest in that love. Every love and every relationship requires investment, right? Invest in it, even if it is one baby step at a time, because Allah will never stop investing in you.
True.
May Allah accept from all of you guys. Jazakumullah khair. Any last words? Any last thoughts? Any tips? Like, is there any tips we can provide to the viewers in investing or in adding the like? How do you you know, what are the ways to love Allah more? And one thing I can think about for myself is like continue to submit. Right? There are things that, I mean, look at the society, the way we are, like with our social media, with our content. There's so many things really distorting that relationship, distorting that love. I think, you know, just sit back and just take a reflection for a minute. Like, is it really worth this, breaking into this? Like, is it really worth it for me, what I'm doing, in essence of losing the love of Allah, right?
Yeah, I think like having the time, like I wrote down mindfulness or muraqabah or meditation and being present. I think I went through periods of time where I was unemployed and I was able, like I go back now and see that was Allah's mercy in giving me that time to really face myself and explore myself and understand like why am I living how I'm living, evaluate that, and then try to be intentional about creating a life that allows me to infuse every part of my life with Him. And that's like, you know, a piece of advice I have is take that time and do that. Yeah.
I would say try to the best of your ability, try to slow down.
Yeah.
Like, and that goes back to basically what you were saying, like as far as meditating and trying to be present and just like detaching yourself from social media and you know, and also people because like
disconnect.
If you're constantly serving and doing service, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You gotta, just like we were talking earlier, you gotta do self-care. You gotta slow things down and really work on yourself. And that's what I'm realizing, wallahi, like now more than ever. Like I'm realizing the importance, like how important spirituality is, you know. Because at one point, when you're in the clouds and you're constantly talking about philosophy and politics and you know, that's beautiful and all, but I feel myself like not having that spiritual connection, you know what I mean? And I'm realizing like how, you know, a lot of the issues that I'm seeing even in my life is, you know, I directly tie it to my proximity to Allah. You know, so
it's like filling your cup to be able to right?
True.
Yeah.
That just made me think of something though. I'm sorry.
No, just for that. No. I want to hear it. You dropped a lot of bombs, so I want to hear this next one.
It's actually like when I felt the most unworthy because like creation was making me feel unworthy, or I was feeling unworthy, and like don't listen to that. Like know that He always finds you worthy. So like I was coming, like I restarted praying, you know, and trying to pray, you know, the 5 prayers each day when I was literally at my lowest and like wanting to end my life because I was like, I feel so unworthy that maybe this will help me feel that worth because He allows me to come before Him. And so I think that's another piece of advice, like going back to what Muhammad was saying, like if you just feel like you can't do anything and you're not connecting, like don't lose faith. Really.
Don't, you know, don't like
hold on to try. Do something.
Hold on to like Allah loves you. Allah loves all of us. Like and I don't know, man. I it's hard for me to continue to explain like what is this love mean? We all have a journey. We all have our experiences. He loves us so much. He cares about us so much. I mean, imagine your mother, the way they care about you. It's 100 times more than that. Imagine your spouse, 100 times more than that. Like think about anyone who truly loves you in your life right now. Times that by 1,000. That's how much Allah loves. Allah loves you more. So don't ever give up. And also announce it. Like talk to Him. Like say, hey, I love you. Thank you for loving me back. And don't ever stop loving me because you're the only one who can love me more than anyone else can love me, right? So like I think having that discussion too with Allah is genuine. So I appreciate you guys giving this, but there's a lot of discussion to talk about. Inshallah, we'll continue. I don't want to go beyond 35 minutes. We want to keep our podcast in our new YouTube sessions. Inshallah, we're going to continue to do this. If you want us to talk about certain topics, please let us know. And we'll love to have a discussion and just want to hear your feedback about the podcast. And if we have said anything here that is not academic or something scholarly, please correct us. We're open to it. This is just an organic conversation we would like to have. So I appreciate it, guys. Definitely, Jazakallah khair.
Thank you.
And thank you for stepping up and being in the video. MashaAllah, like, you did amazing, man.
Yes, mashallah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Drop your experiences in the comments below.
Please. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.